Hello and welcome to Sport in Focus, the programme that celebrates the art of sports photography and the artists behind the lens. The focus today is very much on football, as I'm joined by Stuart Clarke, a man who's travelled the length and breadth of the UK to capture stunning images of the beautiful game. Very warm welcome, Stuart. Has it always been football that's been your big passion?
I grew up liking lots of sports, but almost 25 years ago, I gave up all the other sports and I gave up working for magazines and newspapers, including Time Out magazine, to concentrate on just the one subject, which I called the homes of football. And I wanted to know, what is the game of our forefathers, the game of my youth, the game of this country? We just had the Hillsborough disaster and we were waiting for the Taylor report to say, you know, what was the future of the game. So I realised there was going to be a big change. You know, they weren't just going to say a few things, they were going to make major changes. And I thought, I'm on the cusp of a great time here, looking, you know, a lot of looking back and a chance to look forward. And I thought, I'll be the person to tell the story over the coming year. I set myself a decade to do one subject. Actually, we're nearly 25 years on and I'm still doing it, because it's still changing, it's still evolving. It's still really answering that Taylor report.
So we're going to take a look at your 5 favourite photographs which you've selected to show us today, and also the one that you wish you had have taken.
You know, the first picture we're going to look at it's of a small game, a lower league game. It's actually FC United are playing at Buxton.
This is the offshoot of Manchester United.
Absolutely. And the homes of football was going to always be football at all levels, from World Cup finals, which I've done since 1990, and I'd just be just as happy, you know, the day after a World Cup final to sort of be in the park watching almost 2 people playing. I love it at all levels. So this level is very fascinating, because what I do is get to a ground incredibly early, maybe 6 hours before kick-off. And I walk round and round, a bit like a sheepdog, so rounding up the subject. I try and watch all the crowd arrive and then the players much nearer kick-off, and just make some notes. And with a crowd, at a game like this, I've got a chance to almost see where the 1,000 or even 300, whatever it is, people are going to go. And in this case, a dog.
So you followed the dog, did you, beforehand?
Yeah,
Tell us the story of the dog in this picture. It's just fantastic.
Well, first of all, I wasn't sure they were going to get the admission with the dog. You know, apparently they'd been refused a couple of grounds, but this guy goes to every game and he takes his dog. Buxton were welcoming to the dog.
He looks a friendly fella.
He was friendly, and he actually seemed to know more about the game than most. He watched every single kick. He even went behind the goal at half-time. But this shows about the sort of technique of me as a photographer, and also this idea about getting photos or missing them, because what I saw was, you know, I'd seen the dog was going to be roughly on the halfway line, which is this position. But I didn't expect really the dog to do that, to sort of go like that. And it did it and got down. I thought, oh, Mr. Hold on. We're creatures of habit, dogs, humans. It would do it again. And sure enough, 30 seconds later, I got that picture.
Popped back up again.
So whilst you're busy worrying about missing a picture that you think you've missed, don't, because it could happen again.
Do you think we can learn a lot about football from this one photograph?
I think that it's a picture that appeals to all sorts of people of all ages, and it kind of gets people into the subject. I think a picture we come on to in a second is probably one that we can learn even more about our game from.
Again, football from a bygone era. This is Sunderland playing at Roker Park, somewhere very different to the Stadium of Light.
I'm sure you were there, Lindsay, with your dad. You're in the Newcastle.
I've never actually been to Roker Park, believe it or not, but
and you never will, because it's gone.
I didn't feel safe.
Well, being a Geordie, no, but there's plenty there who did, and the end we're looking towards is split between Newcastle and Sunderland fans. But what I wanted to do that day, having done my sheepdog walk around the neighbourhood and photograph people going to the game, I wanted to show the bigger picture of, like, its place in our society. So we've got this match, you've got the North Sea in the background.
Yeah,
so
it's like an island, isn't it?
We're an island race who love football. Tatty old British flag. This is 1992. The game's taken a bit of a battering. Several have got flasks, the TV crew up there, you know, have them been made coffee? There's a bit of whiskey in it to keep them warm on a cold autumn day with the wind blowing off the North Sea. I love that all the crowd huddled together. It's in the days of standing, you know, before they changed the seats. But have you noticed something peculiar about this picture, what one person is doing? I thought I was highest in the ground, but I wasn't.
Actually, looking at that pylon, someone beat you to it, clearly.
Climbing up the floodlight pylon is somebody who's taken their life into their hands. And
Is this another photographer, do we think, or a fan?
No, it's a fan. I've had the microscope out. But at that moment that your Liam O'Brien scored, and you didn't know this, Lindsay, but you did win that match in yellow and green canary colours. That is actually Newcastle. So you've got the social setting and you've got the moment, you know, which is what mostly the sport photographers capture, is that moment. But I've got it from high up, as high as I could get, the whole scene.
Now, you don't always take your photographs inside of grounds. If we take a look at your third picture, the passion even spills out onto the streets.
When I said about, you know, you never think really you've missed the picture. In this case, I missed the whole match. This was the famous match. Liverpool's comeback in the European Cup final of 2005 in Turkey, in Istanbul, and I couldn't go. For some reason, I couldn't go. So I got my PA, Sally, who's an Everton fan. I said, Sally, let's get in the car the day after. Let's go down to Liverpool. We'll find something. You know, I was sort of sulking that I hadn't been at the match. And then we're just driving in there, and there's a young lady, a mother obviously, pushing a pram. She's got a complete Liverpool kit on. And I jumped out the car, just sort of composed it, waited for her to come by, and that's that picture. I didn't actually get to speak to her at that moment. The Liverpool Echo sort of seized on this because I became more of a person who exhibited pictures, not really put them in papers and things. I exhibited them, put them in books. They picked up on this picture and wanted to know a bit more about her. And lo and behold, is yet another story. It's that in that pram is a baby dressed in blue, Everton blue, because Dad was Everton fan and said, OK, you can have your day. I'll let you walk down the high street.
Like that.
You can dress like that.
But not my child.
Baby is blue.
And the pram's blue too.
Blue pram.
And it really just encapsulates just what football means in that city, doesn't it? You probably see people dressed like that in Liverpool, pushing prams on a weekly basis, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, so I kind of was, sulking that I missed the game. Steven Gerrard's talk in the dressing room at half-time. I was thinking all the things I'd missed. And then I go and get a picture like that, which actually, you know, in the years since, OK, it's not the sport photo, it's not a half-time talk by the manager, but it's got something about it.
But let's move on to your fourth photograph, one that was taken at the Vetch, and tell us why this one means so much to you.
This, like perhaps a lot of, you know, a good part of my collection, there's not necessarily a story at the time. I'm not sent by an editor to get, in this case, a dog lying asleep in the back garden of the house next to it. Dog hasn't bitten anyone. Or the two guys who are in fact brothers who seemingly, you know, carrying the lone flag for their beleaguered Swansea team and the crowd's next to nothing. They're playing, actually, Fulham in the third tier of English football. And Fulham have actually got relegated this week before, so they're into the fourth. But in a way, none of that is the story or the kind of known story. It becomes more pertinent years later as the years roll on. I set out for 10 or now 25 years to tell this bigger jigsaw about, you know, why we love our game and the changes. And this sort of picture with a split screen, you know, you kind of got it literally, like there's a bit of football or sense of with the corner flag and the terrace and the fans, and then it's backed up with the houses. In the distance there's the pub and some people coming to the game. There's a sort of storytelling going on, but no particular event. So the passing of time would give it its meaning. To me, the hour and a half of the match is the icing on the cake, and I'm there from the dawn of the day till the last person leaves, and I want to see everything as much as I can, get good vantage points, and then piece it together with everything else I've taken. As I said, you know, it's quite incredible to think now, all these years on, 20 years on, that these two teams that were playing that day
in the third tier
are now in the Premiership.
And it's so empty as well.
It's so empty. Different league, you know, Wales, a Welsh team rather, playing in what's kind of the English league. You know, there's a few sort of idiosyncrasies in this picture. So
we moved from a club, Swansea, who've climbed up into the Premier League, to a club who were once in the Premier League. Tell us about this photograph. All about Coventry City.
Absolutely. Actually, you know, I've got a few thousand that I rate as my favourites or best photos. In some ways, technically and in every way, this isn't one of my best ones, but it's what it tells us. In 1992, Coventry, had this slightly ramshackle ground, but look at it, heaving with people, so much so that the kids are passed down to the front, like the days of our forefathers.
This was OK then?
That was OK.
Fine.
They could block out Barclays Bank, the sponsor sign. They could sit there. They almost in danger of tripping up players as they go to take a corner kick. And, no one's sending them off or telling them to get back over. There's not too much health and safety going on.
Extra ball boys.
Extra ball boys. They're playing Manchester United. That might say something why Highfield Road is so packed that day. There's other stories here too. I mean, we could look at that picture, you and I, and pick out so many great faces and wonder what's become of them.
So they're the 5 photographs, 5 of your favourites, which you have taken. What about the one photograph you wish you'd taken?
I claim that I was there at the birth of time or football, but I wasn't truly. But in 1930, the Zeppelin, the Graf Zeppelin, the monstrous 757-foot-long thing that you'll see there, was flying, bizarrely, from Germany to Recife in Brazil, flying over Wembley on FA Cup final day in May.
What was it doing that day?
Showing off. But we had a bigger occasion than a Zeppelin. We had the FA Cup final.
Who played the
Arsenal
FA Cup
were
final?
playing Huddersfield. 92,000 crowd. I love aerial photography. And I love the old days, the old black and white pictures. So why I would love to have taken that picture is, it's like my Sunderland picture that I showed before. It's as high up as you can be. You've got the whole crowd, the whole scene. And there's a Zeppelin in there as well.
Stuart Roy Clarke, it's been fascinating looking at your photographs. Thank you very much for joining us on Sport in Focus.
Thanks, Izzy.